Welcome back, I guess. This is the second time I've tried one of these videos. Last week I really enjoyed sitting down and talking about kind of what went through my mind during the sermon at church. And I have started a life group, a small group to discuss these things. But I haven't had any hits yet. So I'm kind of using this as my outlet to talk about the things that I'm thinking about, especially when it comes to the sermon of the week. This week at Life.Church, it's week 2 of the series called Book Club that Pastor Craig has kicked off, and it was the book club is different. He's bringing in speakers, other speakers that have books that he is kind of recommending for everybody to read. And this week was DawnCheré Wilkerson. I hope I'm saying that correctly. She is the wife of a can't remember the name that, what he said his name was, Rich, I think is what it is. Rich Wilkerson of VU Church. And I think they said it was in Florida. And they have 4 children together. I think they said all their names start with W. I think one of the names is Wyatt and Wolfgang. I think, yeah. I grew up with 2 younger brothers, so 3 boys in the house. I can't imagine a 4th. So, very lively, I assume. But the subject that she talked about today was waiting. And when she first started speaking, something that has happened. Or not happened, something that I have found myself doing in recent years has been being very judgmental towards the delivery that speakers can have. A lot of it, I place a very high premium on public speaking as an ability. And one of the things that I very much like is what I feel like is authenticity. Even though there are some people who are very authentic on stage, they might not have the charisma or the stage presence that somebody like Craig Rochelle does, or vice versa, where they have all the stage presence but none of the substance. And for DawnCheré, when she first got on stage, the first thing that hit me, and I acknowledge that this is the wrong attitude to have, but the first thing that hit me was she has a very basic cadence in the way that she speaks. And it's very stereotypical. It's like everything you've ever heard in a movie about a kind of a Southern-ish pastor. Like it wasn't egregious in any way. It was just, I think it's the way that they teach people to speak, especially in a church setting. And to me, that comes across because I've heard it so much. It feels like a performance to me. It feels disingenuous. Like it's like, okay, well, I may not get the words right, but I'm going to get the cadence right. I'm going to get the sound right. And that, because people are so used to that, they assume that if it's spoken in that way, that it has validity. And the unfortunate part is I'm wrong about that. Like, you can absolutely speak in that way and still be 100% valid and be 100% genuine. And to me, that is what DawnCheré was. Is at the beginning, I had to force myself to stop judging. And I mean, that's hard. There's a lot of things that I'm very judgmental about, especially in the faith space, which is so counterintuitive and counter to what, Christ preaches that it just very much like, it's something that I have to work on. And so I wrote down in my notes, because I take notes through the whole thing, and I wrote down my prayer. I literally wrote down stereotypical cadence. I wrote those words, and then immediately after I wrote down my prayer, and I said, help me to look deeper than this. Help me to look deeper than the surface as you do. And to me, to God, help me look beyond just the apparatus or whatever it is, for, DawnCheré's message. And, her message, so that is not really pertinent to what she talked about, but that's important for me. And I want to keep hitting that as I go through these things, and keep acknowledging it, so that eventually, hopefully, it actually sinks in, and it doesn't have to be a secondary response. It doesn't have to be something where I go, oops, I judged, Lord, help me. And then help me. I want to become better at just not judging. And, that takes work on my part. I've been very, I would almost say arrogant in a lot of the ways that I, look at things, especially in the faith space. So that's why I bring it up. It's not so much has anything to do with what she was talking about, but it's something that I need to continue to work on. And so because moving on, the title of her message was Slow Burn, which is the title of her book. And it's about waiting, and it's about, I'll just jump into it. She, one of the main things she talked about was her struggles with infertility. She said she had 8 years of, not even being sure that she was going to be able to have children. And, she ended up with four children. And, for me, and this is kind of where part of the reason why I wanted to do this, and some of that arrogance, some of that, I don't know what you would want to call it, but how do I try to turn these messages, and how do I make them immediately about me? And that's narcissistic or whatever, but it's not so much that I'm trying to okay, everything's about me and it needs to be about me, but more of how can I take this, not just at its surface level, what she's talking about and the weight and things like that, but also what in my life right now can I pinpoint with this message? What actionable things can I take from this? And, for me, when she was talking about the weight, she was talking about that time between learning that she was going to have infertility struggles and then having a child. That waiting period is where a lot of growth and, her reliance on God, was so important. And for me, while obviously I am not dealing with infertility, I don't plan on having children, but that's a whole other story. And, I'll say what I've said to my parents is, if the right girl comes along, and I choose, and I say, hey, I want to have kids with you, then I'll have kids. Right now I am totally okay with a niece and nephew and whatever may come after that. But for me, my waiting period was when I got out of the military, got out of the Marine Corps, and last year. And for me, that waiting period, I would have not have called it a waiting period last year. I would have called it being stagnant. For me, I just wasn't going anywhere. The direction I was kind of wandering about, had no effect I had no desire for it. It was just, I was letting things happen. And, last year I made the switch. I made it a complete turnaround. I had to deal with some things that is, not uncommon, but, really kind of helped me, reassess where I was and where I was going, and helped me make a decision to go in a different direction. And I've been incredibly happy with that decision. And, my life is completely different than it was a year ago, 2 years ago. And, but a lot of that, and this is where my kind of interpretation of her message is maybe differs from her message, is that God was working during all of that time where I was stagnant, where I was waiting. He's always working, but to me, the work wasn't so much about, like an initial, some sort of action. It was about setting me up. It was about like putting me on that edge enough to where I could make that change. That change is that is what has brought me so much joy. And I had to go through what I did over those years being stagnant to prepare myself. If I would have done that, weeks after I got out of the military, yes, my life probably would have been better, but I wouldn't appreciate what I'm going through now. It would have been different. I'd be a completely different person. So I had to go through those things. And I in order to prepare me for who I am today and who to make me who I am today. And that kind of goes back to kind of what John Maxwell talked about last week. But for me, it all came about, all of what I've gone through in the last year has been because of the years before. And so that was very important to me. And that was that meant a lot to me. And one of the things she said was that God uses long stretches of time. And I absolutely agree with that from what I just said. But she also said some things that I just want to kind of read off here. And she said, waiting is not a season, waiting is a lifestyle. And that's kind of a new mindset for me, but I can totally see that. As well as she said, waiting is not a curse. Waiting is an invitation. And one of the things she finished with was how she had written this message before she had children. So it was very she was in the thick of it when she was writing all of this. And now she can talk about her 4 children. But anyways, I'm going to move on a little bit, but the next thing she talked about, it was a story or a little object lesson she gave, which was she grew up in Louisiana, and she said in Louisiana they had bonfires, and bonfires were very much big fire. Everybody brings chairs, blankets, whatever, but everybody is facing the fire. Everybody is, the flame is the center of attention. And everybody, comes around that fire. But her husband, who grew up in Washington State, burned incense. And it was kind of funny. Everybody laughed. I think a lot of that has to do with where the central location of Life.Church is in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma and Louisiana, while vastly different, have a little bit more in common than you think. And bonfires are very much a thing in Oklahoma. So, and incense is not. So I think a lot of people, giggled a little bit at that, but she was like, the difference is we are conditioned by culture to focus on the bonfire, but incense fills a room with fragrance, and it cuts through and coats through everybody who lives in that house, and it covers them in that fragrance. And to me, one of the things that I've always kind of, I don't want to say struggled with, but is kind of what serving in the church looks like. And I swear this does connect, but I've always looked at those who are, very public facing, preachers, worship leaders, whatever, speakers. And I've looked at things that, like, my dad is very, very involved on, forward facing things in the church, and very charismatic and very outgoing. And for me, a lot of that is, I can do those things. A lot of that I've been kind of trained to do inadvertently just by being around my dad. But one of the things that I've always kind of felt was that there should be ways to serve, in a less forward way. And those things have always been there. But for me, it's not something that I've ever thought about. So doing things like this, or setting up for, people to share their stories at their baptisms, or just helping provide other people the opportunity to share their stories. To me, that is the smoke. Not everybody can be fire. If everything is on fire, it can get chaotic, but smoke is just as it can be just as effective. And I'm kind of getting my metaphors, my analogies, mixed up here, but something that I saw recently, and I'm going to see if I can try to find the video, and I'll put it here in the video. But it was somebody was demonstrating how smoke filling a house, when it reaches a open flame, like say in another room, say somebody, say the first few rooms are, I'll see if I can find the video, but if you see in the video, there's a section of the house that is filled with smoke, and then they open a door into a new room. And in that room doesn't have smoke in it, but there is a small flame. As soon as that smoke pours through that door and reaches that flame, it ignites, and that fire flashes through the rest of the house. And in our world, that's terrifying, right? Like, fire is scary, in a house fire. But to me, I immediately, when she started talking about smoke and started talking about incense, to me, I was like, man, what a visualization for being, abiding in Christ and being that smoke. You don't have to be the fire, but just suffusing your space with the fragrance. The verse she uses was 2 Corinthians 2:15, for we are the aroma of Christ to God among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. And to me, I was like, that person who is just, they may not be their pastor, they might not be a worship leader, they may be just a member of the church, but when they go to work, when they go to school, whatever it is, they're just there, and they fill the room with that aroma of Christ. And in that moment, if they meet that open flame, and that open flame can be somebody struggling, it can be somebody who, it could even be a preacher. It could be something because they are filling the room in such that way, and they are known as such that way, when they meet that flame and there's that flash, and that flash of fire that comes, that's what an opportunity to be that flash, to be that ignition for whatever God's plan is. So for me, I want to be the smoke. I want to fill the room and fill where I am with the aroma of Christ, and hope that if it comes in contact with flame, that God can use the foundation that I've laid and the how I've suffused, and how my love for Christ has suffused those around me, that it can ignite his work, whether that be internal, external, whatever. I want to be that fuel for that ignition. So, that was really what kind of came to my head. And I hope I find that video, and I'll show it. I'll kind of loop it here so people can see. But to me, that was that's where my mind went, when she talked about, fire versus incense. And, the last kind of point here that I want to bring up is, in the fragrance space. It's not so much on the smoke side, but it's the fragrance. It's, what do you smell like? And like I said, I want to smell like Christ, right? I want to, I want my fragrance, my aroma to be of Christ and of the Lord. And, so to me, there are three kind of questions, or or three aspects of this, and it's, what do you smell like? And for me, is one of them is you, right? You smell like you, like wherever you are, your personality, how you interact with the world. That's your fragrance, right? That's how, people are going to know you. And, that can change, you can make adjustments, but some of that can be your mistakes. Some of that can be the aroma of addiction that you're trying to get rid of. That can be the aroma of anything negative, but it can also be positive things, right? You cultivate your own fragrance. And obviously you want to smell like Christ. That's the other kind of aspect of that, is you can try to do what you can to smell as Christ does. And smell and all that. I know I'm getting kind of deep into the metaphor here, but finally, the thing that she talked about was a story she told about how she was on a trip, a business trip, and she had to rent a car. And she said that she opened the car door, and that the smell that came out was of whoever had the car last had been smoking in it, and it wasn't incense. It was the joke she made. And so she's like, she drove all around town, and she every time she would get out of the car to go to a meeting, she just felt like she reeks of other people's decisions. And for me, I was like, man, there's so many people that I know that their aroma, their, what they put out, it's not even theirs. It's the result of somebody else's choices, of somebody else's decisions. And that shapes your own smell. It can, there's so much trauma, there's so much addiction, there's so much infidelity, there's so much impurity, whatever you want to call it, that it not only feels like it weighs us down, but that others notice it as well. And one of my biggest issues, what my therapist has said, is that I tend to be a mind reader. And that doesn't mean that I'm actually capable of reading minds, but that I can talk to a person or know a person or think about a person and go, I think due to X that this person thinks of me in this way. And I have no basis for that other than gut feeling and intuition. And some of that I think comes from my spiritual gift of discernment. But that discernment can very much turn into judgment, not just against others, but against myself. So I can think, like, I don't want to talk to that person, or I don't want to bring up this subject with that person because I think they believe this or think that way. And because I disagree with that, or I have differing opinions on that, I'm not even going to approach that person or that subject. And that is, I'm trying to play like 4D chess, and it's not relevant. Like I'm just so inside my head. And to that fragrance of, what do I smell like? Is it my smell? Is it somebody else's smell? Or is it, the aroma of Christ? And how can I, am I inventing fragrances for other people? Am I assuming that other people can smell certain aspects of me that are embarrassing or that I want to hide? Like, these are things that I think about and that I struggle with. And, what this kind of message has, pointed me towards is I just want to focus on putting off the fragrance of the aroma of Christ. Like, how I need to stop thinking about what I smell like what I produce and what my fragrance is versus what other fragrances that others have left on me, and just go, you know what? I don't care about those. Those are going to be stuck on me but they can be drowned out. They can be overwhelmed by the aroma of Christ. So that's kind of the direction that I want to go with my life. And Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, especially not on a weekend or a week or a month or a year or whatever. There's all going to be all sorts of problems and all sorts of struggles. So I'm just going to continue to try, and I'm going to wait until it happens. So really, those are my thoughts on the message from today from DawnCheré Wilkerson. Her book Slow Burn is something that I want to eventually pick up and read through. I'm not sure when, but it's on my list. And hopefully next week I can do this again. And eventually I want to be able to do this with people and, explore and discuss with others. And either just in my life group, like I've talked about, or even have somebody else, sit next to me, and I have 2 microphones and we can discuss. But we'll see. So for now, thanks for watching. If you did watch, obviously if you made it this far, I'm impressed, because I'm not sure I would have made it this far. But again, thanks for watching, and hope to see you next week. Toodles.